Welcome, everybody. It's time once again for the next chapter with Charlie Hedges as he explores turning the page on his life and yours. Hey, Charlie.
Yo, Producer Paul, what's up, man?
We're excited for the playoffs that are coming up.
Yeah, I love to throw those questions at you. What Charlie doesn't ask me questions?
I better turn my mic up.
Our guest today, I'm calling him truly a next chapter kind of guy. Steve Farrell attained the pinnacle of success as a Silicon Valley entrepreneur, founding 2 high-tech firms. Then he pivoted to take a lead of Humanity's Team, which is a global nonprofit designed to to help people everywhere awaken to our interconnectedness, our global and local interconnectedness. Steve's latest book, A New Universal Dream, is the inspiring story of Steve's journey from pursuit of wealth and traditional ideas of success toward a more fulfilling life of caring and service to others and humanity. So with that, let's bring on our guest. Steve Farrell, welcome to the next chapter with Charlie.
Charlie, thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to being here and the conversation we're about to dive into.
I am too, and this is sort of an off-the-wall. This is a different, no one will know it. Guests won't know it, or the guests, you may catch it, but the listeners will not know it. But I'm kind of out there today, and I like that. But so I want to start with this. On one of your pieces that I received that we're explaining you called yourself, I like this title, Evolutionary Pioneer. Now, although I'm not sure what exactly that means, I love the title. Tell me about it.
Yes, well, I think that probably is an apt description. You mentioned I've had really quite an extraordinary life. It started out probably like listeners. I grew up in a little home, divorced mom, 6 brothers and sisters. From college, I moved out to San Francisco, and then, wow, did the adventure begin, because as you mentioned in the introduction, I was really in the right place at the right time. The internet was being born. Start my first company, 2 guys, used furniture, little executive suite, and bam, next thing I know, we've grown this thing to a $75 million company. And then inside of that first company, we birth a second company that we take to $75 million in 2 years. Then that gave me entrance into what I'll call the club, this whole center of wealth creation there in Silicon Valley, where I'm in with these business associates like Evan Newsom, who was one of the 60 guys in my chapter.
Like in our governor kind of Newsom?
And yeah, like Governor Newsom and other people that were just as extraordinary. And then I had this calling to what I call conscious living, and I left it all. I sold everything. I left the business association. I moved my family to Boulder, Colorado, and together with Neil Donald Walsh, who people may know him as the author of the Conversations with God
popular series.
He and I started a nonprofit called Humanity's Team that's all about uniting humanity, and it was 20 years ago, and it is, I think, really pointing toward this evolutionary path of how we grow into higher purpose and a more fulfilling life and all of these kinds of things.
Just out of curiosity, what years were you involved in the Silicon Valley?
1990 to 2001. So, yeah, about 11 years.
So you were in heyday. You were in all kinds of stuff happening at that time.
It was unreal, yeah. And I grew up, in a very modest home, and then I'm out on private jets and private ski areas and all that stuff.
Trying to figure it out if you fit and fake it all along that you do fit. I know those early stages where you're just entering into the combat zone.
Right, yeah, a lot of cognitive dissonance in there. The one hand is like, wow, I haven't ever done this before. And then on the other hand, of what am I doing here with all these challenges in the world? Is this really where I'm supposed to be? So yes, that back and forth conversation was going on in my head.
So you did a pivot in your life, and you and there's a concept that I think I really want to talk about, and that is, you mentioned it briefly in one of the things that I read, but I speak I don't want to say frequently, but not infrequently about the American dream. And in my mind, it began very purely and then morphed into a very selfish, me-centered sort of pursuit. And what I'd like to do is I think, I don't even know if you're prepared to do this, but, I'm prepared to give it a shot to sort of debunk this fading prominence of the so-called American dream. Now, my real quick take is that I feel that what was once a significant driving force, especially for immigrants and people raised in middle class, lower middle class, and lower class, always had a chance to improve. What I've noticed, Steve, is that it's become far too selfish. It's all about me getting better, and that's the only thing that makes a difference is me. And there seems to be little or no reference to other focus on outside of our individual selves. And although I love the idea in the American dream, you have an opportunity to succeed in your endeavors. These endeavors, in my mind, must include the concept of community and others in your world and others in the world. Can you tell me your thoughts on what I just said?
Absolutely. And Charlie, that could be the cliff notes from my book because this is a story I tell. It's called A New Universal Dream. It's the true story of me from age 12 to now, with the birth of this nonprofit called Humanities Team. It's all about uniting humanity on the planet and so on. I tell the story exactly as you mentioned. So the way I saw it and see it today is call it the lower rungs of the American dream ladder are wonderful. It's about equal opportunity, equal access to quality education. I mean, oh my God, who doesn't want this for every American? And I'll even go further and say every person on the planet. Fantastic. Yes, of course. Now, what happened, as you mentioned, is that ladder has these upper rungs, and it gets messy and really awful, really, is what I could see. Most people aren't going to have that opportunity to be there. You start these companies in Silicon Valley, you grow them, you're in this club with all of these elites, and see and be in that room in forum where you're sitting there side by side with these people as they're talking about their wives, husbands, their kids, best friends, confidentially. So I'd never name names. But what happens in those upper rungs of that American dream ladder, as you mentioned, is it's just a mirage. You get to 100 million, then you celebrate for 2 days, then you're headed for 200 million. And then you celebrate for 2 days, then you're headed for 400 million. And so it goes. It's just, it's like the kids' cartoon where that oasis just keeps moving out. You walk to it, and it's moved out. You walk to it, it's moved out. Meanwhile, you're just killing yourself as you're growing. This business is creating all of this top and bottom line. And in so doing, you're creating this pressure and stress on your relationship with your partner, your kids, your friends, your coworkers. There were a few families that were that my wife and I were involved with back then where we felt like there was good balance and health and well-being and all of that. There were many situations where even things like contemplated suicide were there.
Yeah.
Of course, we've read these stories from Silicon Valley and New York where in these upper rungs where financial wealth thing, it turns into power and fame and fortune and these things. And it's a cancer. So, and this is why I left it all. As you know, in the book, I talk about how this journey to conscious living, and which I'm sure we'll get into a great discussion. In conscious living, then we find this delicious life where you've got a beautiful relationship with your partner and your kids, and you've got your daily practice and these things that nourish you and that nurture and nourish the people whose lives you touch.
My next question is, we're going to get into that and your book. We're going to begin with conscious living and conscious leadership. But as you were talking, sort of an example / metaphor struck my mind, and I think of the young individuals that want to become politicians in the United States. And my guess is, and I've known two or three, so I've not known a lot, but they begin with very pure intentions. Very pure intentions of representing their constituency, of doing what is right for the country and not selfishness. And somewhere along the line, the power, the financial reward, the accolades turn into, instead of country and constituent concern, it turns more into how can I keep my office and how can I, it turns very personal. It loses that sake for the country to more like safety for me. Am I overstating that, do you think?
I don't think you are. So, in the upper rungs of that American dream ladder, it's very secular, we're in our head. We're in our day planner of transactions and tasks and these kinds of things. Very seducing. And by contrast, conscious living, it's spiritual. So this is where we really know how loved we are by, I'm going to say, I use the word, point our lives toward higher purpose and real meaning and deeper values in these things, and where it's about service, and where the more that we give ourselves away, the better we feel. In my book, there are three. That's the third one, is the more we give ourselves away, which means the more that we're in service, the better we feel. Part of what this distills down to is go with the soul. And we all have a soul. There's actually no part of what conscious living is it's saying there's no separation. What scientists are saying is true now too, where science and spirituality are coming together, where we go in prayer or in meditation or in stillness, where we quiet ourselves and go within. We will hear that still small voice. And really, part of the story of my book is that was what, fortunately, I did allow that still small voice to always lead me, not have my family members and best friends and people that came to me, as they did many times during the course of my career, to say, Steve, what are you doing? Wow, why are you, especially when I left Silicon Valley and I left the Young Presidents Organization and stuff, that I'd lost my mind. And they're well-meaning. They loved me, but they weren't hearing the still small voice that I heard. Steve, there's a bigger role for you to play.
Service, it's intimacy with God first, sort of our existential ontological being. It comes first, but what proceeds from that with a healthy intimacy with God, what proceeds with that is service. It's all about service. It's all about love. It's all about caring for other people. And you're a tool, a pure tool, a healthy tool that can perform service to God. And it sounds like you caught that vision 20 years ago and have proceeded very strongly with that.
That's it. Yeah. And Christian mysticism, how beautiful is that? And the Holy Trinity, right? And yes, which is part of my daily practice, where I'm praying in, feeling in, inviting in, of, hey, use me. I'm your arms and legs and lungs down here. Use me. Look at all of these challenges out in the world. People, after I talk like that, will come up to me and say, I've tried that, and I've got one foot in that water, and I haven't really gone further because I'm afraid what I might lose, how it might hurt me financially and things. The interesting thing is, and I know you have seen this too, Charlie, is more, that we give of ourselves, the more blessings that are returned. The fun to the kingdom and all things are given that to be true. There's a certain boomerang effect. I don't do anything I do for the boomerang effect.
No.
I find that those blessings continue to come back to me again and again and again.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I found the same thing when I did service in Uganda, is that it was, I did 7 years of that, and it was that service to the poorest of the poor, providing 1 million people with access to clean water. That holds comparison to my Lexus. That holds no comparison to my Lexus. It doesn't. It's just so much more profound. I want to move into conscious living and conscious leadership. I know you begin with that we all are one, and I take that, and I don't know if they're synonymous or if one is a takeoff on the other, but all are one. Sometimes it's difficult to understand because that's a very Eastern, especially Buddhist thought, and I can completely concur with it. But I think in the United States, what works for us better instead of oneness, because that's just a little out of our realm of thinking, there is a sense of connectedness that it seems to me as an American, I can identify connectedness much better with oneness, and oneness is the beginning of connectedness, but that the whole world, people, actions, everything is connected. We are not isolated, independent actors. There is impact on everything we do on everyone in the world.
I'm with you, and even when I talk about oneness, so again, the fingers on a hand, which is the connection, right? We're not. It's not some homogeneous oneness thing where there's no diversity. It's just the opposite. We're like fingers on a hand. Where my contribution and yours are also very different. There's this incredible diversity and unity, and connectedness gets us there. It's Albert Einstein in 1921. Okay, so this is 102 years ago. Greatest illusion in the world is illusion of separation. You can Google that and see, and then he actually goes on to say that this is what represents a prison for us, he says, because causes us to have affection for a few closest to us. And then he says, our job must be to free ourselves from this prison. And isn't it interesting? By embracing the whole of humanity and the planet. And again, I grew up in the Christian church. I was an altar boy in the Catholic church back as a kid. And so, and in the Bible, it shares, actually, there are many of these quotes that we're one with God and each other in life and all of these things.
Right.
And that takes us into something that actually is maybe equally important or more important, which is, it's really, we've all heard, that everything is energy and so on, and we might try and reconcile that. What does it mean for everything to be energy? And what does it mean
explain that
in an interconnected universe? So a body, if you have this one universal presence, an omnipresence, we've all heard the term. Omnipresence means that divine God is in everything. And where God's in everything and there's a body, which is the universe or the cosmos, bodies are energy or energetic, right? And part of the equation, we all know the E equals MC squared equation from Einstein's day. That equation means that energy cannot ever go away. You can't bleed energy. Energy is everlasting, is immortal. So then again, wow, that brings you right into, okay, so we're one body. We means that you use the term, cells in a body. I have. This means that it's an energetic body, which means we need to set our vibration. We've all heard this term of our daily practice or prayer. We need to go in with intention, right? We need to set our energetic vibration, which is that throughout the day, I'm going to be loving, I'm going to be kind, I'm going to be listening, things like this. When we're younger, we don't even necessarily have a daily prayer, and we don't think in terms of setting an intention or energetic vibration. One of the things that we get with as we grow older is wisdom, and we understand, build this into our day, and this then leads to this whole, I talk about delicious living. The way I would describe my life now is it's like a raft, floats above this up and down roller coaster life that I lived before I learned how to live this way. Where, today's a bad day, and oh boy, we must be in retrograde today, Tomorrow is kind of a good day, and it's like that, up and down and all over. It's not like that anymore. I still have challenges that are substantial, but coming at these challenges from a whole different place, from an understanding that, I'm offspring of the Most High, just as you are, and every listener is. We all are. It's said in the good book, and mystics have shared this. And now what's really interesting is the scientists are sharing it. They use the terms like, we're all sovereign to one body. I hear the scientists share this, where the research is sharing that everything physical and non-physical, from quantum scale to cosmological objects, it's all one part of one body. A little bit on that topic.
Oh man, I really love that topic and that we all are from, in my predispositions that, we are all created from one source. And that one source is the source of love and kindness and compassion. And whenever we produce those acts, we are in concert with divine intent. That is the purpose. The purpose of the divine is to give and receive love. And when we fall into that, then our whole perspective of life gets turned upside down. And we begin to think not only of ourselves, but we begin to think of a divine source, whatever we may call that source. For me, obviously it's God, but I have no objection to people using another source name, because we are talking about that which is beyond all logic and data. It is beyond. This source is beyond created things, existed before everything was created. So the source is the key to it. But this source, the ontology, the essence of this source, is love and kindness and compassion and truth. And if we can express that outside of our own personal needs, to our families, to our community, to our world, and then like what's happening in the world itself, and I'm not just thinking of Israel and Ukraine right now. I'm thinking of, there are so many little countries, we don't even hear of the wars, where thousands of people are being killed daily. Hundreds at least of people are being killed daily because of selfishness. And if we were to understand our connection to these people, hopefully that might bring about some kind of change.
Yeah, amen. I mean, what's done unto the least of these is done unto me, right? It was said 2,000 years ago, and this is coming into this oneness or interconnectedness thing, where we understand, it's a part of something much bigger than just our bodies. Our bodies, again, the scientists now are saying a body is something you have. It's not something that you are. When we talk about what you are, now we're talking about your soul, your spiritual life, which is everlasting, that which returns to the one, which we call God and the divine and humanities team. So, and what you're bringing in is this whole, it's how we live deliciously, where we're, I call it aligning with the divine. For people that aren't deeply spiritual, can say align with the universe or cosmos. Divine really more gets at it, because there are miracles and synchronicities and synergies and all these things that manifest. Because where we're doing the things that you talk about, Charlie, we really surrender and say, okay, my will is your will. And not that we're perfect or excellent all the time, because who is? But the best of our ability. We're just living it to the best of our ability. And we do that, then the magic starts happening, or the miracles of, resources coming in. You mentioned my story here in the introduction to, I'm a middle kid, from a modest little home. And then I'm starting these $75 million companies and out into this club, and then I leave that, and then I start Humanities Team, and now we're the largest global nonprofit in transformational education, now translating our new programs in 75 languages, and we're teaching all over the world. We have 65 country coordinators. How did that happen? And tell people, I think it's me. What it is what I've surrendered to. The God of my understanding, where here in service, and I'm just saying, okay, in many ways what I've done is I've said, that dream, and I'm talking about God's dream, I'm saying, that dream is my dream. And so let's go make it happen. You bring on, you just keep that vision in front of me, then bring the provision, right? Because the vision's really big. Our vision is make conscious living pervasive worldwide by 2040, and 17 years is like, wow, that's a bold one. So, and I didn't dream that up. That was dropped. That was given to us. So saying, okay, there's the vision. Now bring on the provision, and then things happen. The people show up, raising $100 million global consciousness fund right now. I think those funds will show up.
Let me
incredible
introduce,
things happen.
Let me introduce a rather tactical Monday question. I'm curious, if you have grown so rapidly and to so much of an extent, I want to turn this in, I don't want to turn this into a business phone call, but I am curious, what is the hook? What draws people into oneness? Why do so many people identify with the message you are proclaiming and saying that it is a better way of life for them? What is the draw? What's the hook there, Steve?
Here it is how I understand it and explain it, is what we're doing is exposing false realities. So false reality that we're, and I can, as I talk about this, we can think about microcosm. Okay, that's individuals where we know there's a great deal of pain today, and anxiety, and even depression, disempowerment, fatigue, on and on and on. And then macrocosm, that's the collective, the world. As we look out, watch TV, read our newspapers, the extreme weather getting worse, and now Israel and what's happening over in Palestine and the Ukraine and all of these other things. It's very sick. It's not a world in health with health and well-being. Almost everybody agree to that. So microcosm is off, macrocosm is off. Those two are linked. As we get healthy, then the macrocosm starts getting healthy. The two are linked, individual and collective. Here's the false reality we're exposing, and that we believe is the first domino. It's what's at the root of all of this. Two things. We've actually talked about this in some, but I haven't brought it back to this. But we're separate, okay? Which means it's my body separate from your body. We're separate from the earth. We're all separate. Even though, again, you've got Einstein quotes going back over 100 years that's saying that's the greatest illusion in the world. All the science, including Nobel Prize for Physics, entanglement, October of last year, new science, all coming in saying, not separate. This is crazy. Our eyes are deceiving this. Einstein called it an optical delusion. Okay, so that's number one false reality, separate. Second fallacy, a false reality that we're exposing is that primarily physical universe. It's my body that's what counts, in your body and other bodies, that's who I am, is my body. Now we know, again, going back thousands of years, it's, what if we inherit the whole earth and we suffer loss of our soul, this is the worst thing that can happen, right? There was a more beautiful quote than that, but that was what it was said roughly 2,000 years ago, where it's referencing a spiritual reality and a physical reality of the earth. It's a spiritual universe. This is science and spirituality are bridging. Scientists, again, are weighing in on this and saying it's a non-dual universe. It's a universe actually in harmony. James Webb Telescope, this is what we can see. So this is the second fallacy, that primacy of the physical, which is where our attention is now, instead of primacy of a spiritual universe or soul.
I have a question on that. Let me. I don't mean to interrupt,
sure.
but this is a question that's sort of driving at me. The history of the world. I mean, we look at, even today, it's not as strongly today, but the history of the world is conquership. It's conquership, it's slave owners, that no country exists without another country invading it and putting their people in. And this has been the history of the world, but we seem to be in an epoch or an era of which we are in transition. We may be, in your statement as the what did I call you? What kind of evolutionist? The evolutionary pioneer.
Evolutionary pioneer.
This is an evolution in which we are turning to think differently than conquest. About, instead of conquest, it's connection, and it's how do we work that through? Do you think? Does this seem to you that in the midst of our chaos right now, the world is facing a dramatic epoch or era change?
Yeah, and you could call it involution if you wanted, because this starts. It's an inside-out job. What we're talking about, with our daily practice, it's about evolving our interior self, where we know ourselves as offspring of God, of the divine, and you could even say sons and daughters of the divine, sent here now, this time when the planet is so incredibly challenged. Why? I believe the why because we're all supposed to play a role. We're all supposed to stretch into this, to involve, just to evolve, and to understand that we are not separate, that it is a spiritual universe. I don't want to get off on tangents, but I also work with mediums, and I work with the near-death experience community, and share about the life review at the end of our life. They all share the very same story, a life review, where it's other people's eyes, their thoughts, they're around us throughout our life. And then at the end of that life review, the question is asked, so now, Steve, did you and God achieve what you were setting out to achieve that lifetime? Then I respond, then that sets the stage for this next life that I'll live when I embody again. So with all that's going on the planet now, people, what would they be thinking, feeling, and seeing throughout your life? You're going to experience that in your life review at the end of this physical life. As well, and maybe more important than that, I'm a boomer. I've enjoyed an incredible life. I've got a 19-year-old, 21-year-old, and they're youth everywhere, kids being born into the world. What are they going to inherit? So what we're talking about is how we lean into it, we stretch into it, this pivot that's occurring now, this great shift that's occurring on the earth, that we can be a part of that. We can play a role, can help accelerate this whole thing before we leave the planet, leave kids and future generations a much better planet than what we're headed into right now.
You're leading me to a subject that is very, very dear to me, and it's a new subject within the last 3 or 4 months, and that I have resolved that I have, at 74 years old, I have entered a role of eldership. And eldership is a lost role in the United States. We like other cultures, we don't respect elders, and that's because elders have not quite always earned the respect. And I have a very strong affinity for the youth, for 25 to 40-year-old people, and the difference that they can make in the world. And I feel that that's a role that I can implement. Now I have as we growing near our time, but not quite, you talk about a subject that is going to seem like a little bit of a departure, but it's right in line with what you talk about, and it's right in line with where I am in Christian mysticism. And you talk about wisdom and logic, two subjects that are very dear to me. You say the wisdom, you compare the wisdom center of the heart versus the logic center of the mind. And that is, post-enlightenment, we have lost the heart, and we've become so enamored with the mind. Now, a 14th century writing, a book by an unknown mystic, Christian mystic, the author is unknown, it's called The Cloud of Unknowing. And let me just read a couple of quotes, very, very brief quotes that come from that book. Most people in the religious society today are not thirsting for more doctrine or dogma. They're not thirsting for logic. They're not thirsting for doctrine or dogma about God, dogma about God, but rather they are longing for a direct encounter with the divine love. And then he says, God is to be loved, not to be understood. Now, whether we put that in the terms of God or the universe or the source or life and other people are to be loved more than understood. Understood is critical. I'm not saying that that's not important. That's critically important, but the author says that one precedes what one does. And when we can work on that core, that heart core, then the logic follows. Are you in agreement with that, or do you think I'm off on a tangent?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, what happened to me here, which I describe in my book, is in the 1990s, I was a logic center of the mind guy, and I took the Myers-Briggs test many people have. And I was
ENTJ.
So ENTJ, that's the CEO profile. That's what I was. That's how I scored. I'm not an ENTJ anymore. And happened, and I didn't have any roadmap or any operating manual or anything that I'd read that caused this. It just was a natural unfolding or evolution for me. Was I did drop as I was giving myself to God and real understanding this oneness, spiritual universe, looking at the challenges out in the world, saying, okay, I'm in. Cognitive dissonance is going to end. I am in, God. I'm yours. You direct my path. And once that happened, then this whole clarity came in. This one I loved. I could feel how incredibly loved I was, and every listener here. I promise you, this is my deep understanding. Every listener here, no matter what you've done in your life, is incredibly loved. Every hair on your head, everything about you is loved to the end of the earth. I promise you, this is true. This is not a platitude I'm sharing.
'Tis true, not a platitude. 'Tis true.
Our daily practice will get in touch with that, and as you feel that, what happened naturally for me is return the love of it. I said, and I love you, to the end of the earth, because my understanding is I've come to is God is perfect love, pure light. It's not, this is where now I would depart from my earlier Christian understandings, where now in my understanding, when I go back and we all go back, we're not, there's not some of the things that I had envisioned from earlier in my life. It's an incredible, it's pure love and light that we're returning to. That's that non-physical presence. And so, yes, we're incredibly loved, and we becomes reciprocal. We love back. And then what's happened then is that did take me down into this wisdom center of my heart or my soul, from the logic center of my mind. And that's where I lead from. And so what does that look like? Because that could sound pretty ambiguous. So what that looks like is now as anything is coming to me, I bring it in to feel it. Feel it. It's more in my heart space. I'm feeling it more in the middle of my chest. What does this feel like?
Yeah, it's not ideas, it's not thoughts, it's not programs. It is completely heart and feeling, and in my terms, it is completely love and sort of opening oneself up and allowing love to just permeate everything in us.
That's it, and to become its expression. And its expression can be quite different for each of us. Mine was to go start Humanities Team with Neil Donald Walsh and create these educational programs. Yours, look at this beautiful podcast that you've created, Charlie. And each listener here, we're guided to some form of love. It can be truth-telling. It can be something as simple as being with an elderly person that we're related to. It can be many different things. Beautiful thing is this is an anti-guru thing, because we don't ever go outside of ourselves to find this. We find this in prayer and in meditation and stillness. We find it in our daily practice. And if we don't go within, we go without. And that's a truism.
I love
but
that.
when we go within, it's all there. We not only find the guidance and the vision, but find the provision. What we're led to, I was given conscious living pervasive worldwide by 2040. Wow. And then I was led to, raise 3 million. Then I was led to raise 100 million. Things that these are, I can't do these things by myself. This is God's stuff. And we really,
it is, yeah.
Where we find where we're led to a really pure vision and we follow it, just get out of the way and let God bring it in. We'll be told what to do during our day. And where we just do what that is, we'll sleep well in our pillow at night. We'll get up the next day, and it'll be just the same, a delicious kind of life.
I so agree, and a very practical sort of take on this. I just spoke about it in the last couple of podcasts, so forgive me, but it's so important to me, and that's the idea of karma. And I've heard a couple of ideas of karma. Karma is sort of transactional. If you do good, good will come back to you. If you do bad, bad will come back to you. Well, I was explained by a Buddhist monk that is not the right definition of karma. Karma is it's not transactional. Karma is more holistic in that if you have the habit of doing good, you have a mindset of good. So that means when good comes, you can receive it, you can understand it, you can accept it. It's not an anomaly in your life. However, if you have the bad of taking, you have the the negative karma of taking advantage of other people, being selfish. That's all you see. And I like that. If I have good things, if my life is filled with good things and good intentions, I see those good things coming to me. If not, I don't see them. I'm blocked off to them. I like that concept a lot, that I live in a world of love and peace.
Yeah, I love that. I love the way that was reconfigured, because I think that's right. I don't think it's like a karma of somebody trying to hurt you or spank you. It's more just redirecting you back to your higher calling, your higher purpose, your higher in service. There are certain consequences there that'll lead you back. And then once we really get on the trail of the karma of love, of light, of service, that's where just, again, it's such an amazing day, and you put your head on the pillow and you go, oh my gosh, you just sleep really well. We know ourselves. Here's the important thing in this is we know ourselves as true offspring of the Most High. There is a creator. It's the omnipresence of the universe. We are offspring of that, son or daughter of that. And I don't think it's any random thing that every listener here just was born into this world at this time. The great shift of the ages is taking place. I think we were born in because we put our hand up. We said, I'll be there. I'll lean into it. I'll awaken. I'll then lean into it. I'll stretch into it. I'll play the role that I can play. I'll go to my station in life. Honestly, I believe that's what every person listening is being guided to right now. And maybe in early stages of that or latter stages. Early, you're talking pretty latter stages, coming into elder and all of these things you're doing. But wherever we are, what I would say is just find that time for daily practice. Let it anchor you throughout your day. Go within and really listen and ask the question, what am I to do? What are you guiding me to?
Mm-hmm.
And then ask for support once that guidance comes. Then as the flesh and blood of the creator that you are, go at it and watch the miracles happen. You're giving of yourself in a very pure way.
You've led me into my final question, and it has to do with something you told me, that's how to begin this process, this step to a more fulfilled life. And you talked about we all sort of need to experience, not once, but probably over and over again, what you called a Galileo moment. I liked that Galileo shocked the world into reality, and he had to pay a price for it. But the ultimate reward was, life changing. So there is a sense in which I caught what you were saying. Each of us need to be at times sort of shocked or startled into a new reality. We've been running comfortably with our life as we know it. Then something comes about. We learn something. I love to tell people, never believe what I say today, because I could get new information and change my mind tomorrow. It's a Galileo moment is amount of new information, new inspiration. So my final question for you, and you may explain the Galileo moment more if you wish, but can you describe to me how life might look different after experiencing a Galileo moment?
Absolutely. Yes, would love to. So let me explain this. 3 or 4 months ago, I was walking around, and in my kitchen, term was dropped into my head, Galileo moment. I thought, what in the world does that mean? What does Galileo moment mean? And so I went and Googled it and banged it, and I then remembered back some of the history from my grade school and college years that, yes, Galileo was an Italian. There in the early 1600s, he learned about the telescope from the Dutch, there was a person that was Dutch that created the telescope, created his own telescope, looked up into the heavens. At that time, this was the time of the Inquisition, kind of a dangerous time, actually. And the reality that the whole world understood was what was called geocentric. And geocentric means that they believed the entire universe evolved around the Earth. The Earth was the center of the universe. And Galileo put up his hand, so to speak, with his research from his telescope, and he said, "Oh, this is a false reality. The universe is not revolving around the Earth. In fact, the Earth is one of many planets revolving around the sun, solar system, the edge of the universe." Now, that might not sound like such a big deal, but it was a very big deal in the early 1600s. This Inquisition, people were actually dying from the sword, etc. And he was told he needed to recant right away, or he would be put to death. He was under house arrest from the time that his research came out, and they were about to kill him, so he did recant. It was too late. Others had telescopes and observed the same thing, so the world actually shifted because of his research. The whole world changed. People came to understand that we were not the center of the universe at all.
And that's what we're experiencing today, is it not? The whole world, our whole concept of the world is altered.
But that's it. And this is why I realized it was dropped into my head. This was God, I'm sure, that dropped this into my head, because I immediately see why this was dropped into my head, because I could see today, of course, something even more important and more urgent that needs to be understood. What I was going over here earlier, that we're not separate at all. That's a false reality. Likewise, it's a false reality that the primacy of the physical, that we think of ourselves as, I'm this body, Steve Farrell in a body. It's not true at all. It's a spiritual universe. I'm simply inhabiting a body. Was carnalized, and I'll be decarnal as my life ends. I'll go back to a non-physical reality. There's no one person who will shoulder this responsibility like this poor man Galileo. Now it belongs to every listener here. Do some homework if this whole idea of oneness and spiritual universe sounds off. Humanities Team, our 501c3 nonprofit, has lots of free programs. humanitiesteam.org. And there are many other. Go to the Bible. Go to science. There are many sources now that are saying, one, and deeply interconnected. Two, that it's a spiritual universe. Once we embrace those truths, start living into those truths, Charlie, that's what this whole conversation has been about. Then microcosm changes. The individual changes. We evolve. There's an involution that occurs, and we come into this whole delicious way of living our lives. When we get to 8% of us that are living this way, the Malcolm Gladwell thing happens. We come into tipping point where we create a sustainable and flourishing earth, and future generations will inhabit the same kind of beautiful earth that us boomers have enjoyed.
Well, what a marvelous goal. I think each individual, the more we can think out of ourselves, think of our interconnectedness, our cellular unity, both on a physical and a spiritual universe, that we are all one, that our care needs to be for each other, not just for me individually. I really think you're on to something, and I'm sorry we didn't get into a new universal dream more, but I am putting it on the show notes and encouraging readers to take a look. And the book I've read, everything I've read about it has just been a fantastic book. I look forward to it. Thank you, Steve Farrell. You have been amazing. What a fun conversation. I've appreciated it.
Thank you for leading me through this here, Charlie. It's been awesome. Yeah, thank you. And you can go to anewuniversaldream.com. The first chapters of the book are opened up. We're giving away actually one of my master classes called Conscious Leadership. Just enter your receipt number right now. I think the book is between $12 and $14 on Amazon. And it gets into all of this in a much deeper way.
Great. We'll check it out. Thank you again. And I also want to thank all our listeners for tuning in to the next chapter with Charlie. Until next, bye for now and see you next week.